This is A New Angle, conversations about how we're doing and where we're going. I'm your host, Justin Angle. This show is supported by the Headwaters Foundation, First Security Bank, and the University of Montana College of Business. Hey folks, welcome back, and thanks for tuning in. Today is our next edition of The Ripple Effect, a quarterly series in which I speak with grantees of the Headwaters Foundation. My guest today is Casey. I didn't ask you how to pronounce your last name correctly.
Fuson,
that's what I thought. We're going to start over.
Okay. Casey Fuson.
Fuson. I've got two hard words to deal with. Hey folks, welcome back, and thanks for tuning in. Today is our next edition of The Ripple Effect, a quarterly series in which I speak with grantees of the Headwaters Foundation. My guest today is Casey Fuson. Let me just start over. Kids Program Director, right? That's the title? Okay. Normally I'm smoother than this, so you've got me nervous. Hey folks, welcome back, and thanks for tuning in. Today is our next edition of The Ripple Effect, a quarterly series in which I speak with grantees of the Headwaters Foundation. My guest today is Casey Fuson, Kids Program Director at the TFS Community Hall in Trego, Montana. What's happening in Trego offers a wonderful example of how communities can come together to fill gaps in services and support each other. Casey, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us, where did you grow up and what did your parents do?
So I grew up in southern Illinois, what, if you were there, they would call southernmost Illinois.
Southernmost?
Southernmost.
Okay, explain.
Illinois, everybody thinks of Chicago up north, and then there's cornfields in the middle. And I'm from the southernmost part of Illinois that is like oak, hickory forests. The Shawnee National Forest is there. And it's this incredibly beautiful landscape of like sandstone, hills and cliffs, and it's gorgeous down there. So that's where I'm from.
Great. And your parents?
Yeah. So my mom had a background in early childhood education and didn't really do anything with that degree because she ended up working for the university in Southern Illinois, actually. So my mom worked for the university, and my dad was a parts specialist by day and a bluegrass musician by night.
Nice.
And sort of had a connection to all this beautiful music and art that was going on in Southern Illinois.
Okay. So to my knowledge, there's not a direct flight from southernmost Illinois to Trego, Montana. How did you make your way to northwest Montana?
Originally came out to work for the Forest Service. My bachelor's degree is in forestry resources management.
And where did you go to school?
At Southern Illinois University, Carbondale,
They don't call it Southernmost University?
They don't, no, SIU. Had a bachelor's degree in forestry and moved out here to work for the Forest Service originally, and didn't find myself fulfilled by working in the Forest Service, so ended up in some other fields.
Yeah, and when did working with children become something you wanted to do?
I've kind of always had that in the periphery. I started working for the Boy Scouts when I was 18, so I've sort of been in the field of experiential education loosely. Worked for the Boy Scouts. I worked for an environmental education center in Southern Illinois. When I moved to Montana, after my first job at the Forest Service, I was an AmeriCorps member with Montana State Parks, so I was working with kids doing field trips, and then I ended up just loosely in a bunch of positions where I was doing experiential education, usually in the outdoors, and then found myself in early childhood when I had my own kids, and realized that there was a big gap.
You're in it and you're in it.
And had sort of this like unique set of skills where I was like, I think I can do some of the things that I think are missing in that field.
Great. Well, we're going to talk about all the stuff you do, but first let's talk about Trego. What's happening there? Give us the highs and lows of the community as you see it.
Yeah. So I moved to Trego about 10 years ago. My husband and I bought our house in Trego 9 years ago. And Trego is sort of like a former logging town, like a lot of places in Montana. But it also had this weird boom in, I believe, the 70s and 80s when they were building a train tunnel through the mountains from our side of the mountain to Libby, Montana, which is on the other side of the mountain. So it's, I think, like the second longest train tunnel in North America. So it's this super cool thing that's sort of in the middle of nowhere. So Trego has that, and it boomed and a bunch of people moved there, and it was really exciting. And then once the tunnel was built, everyone moved away. And we're left with this town that has some really incredible infrastructure. Like we have a community hall that was built that is, this amazing building. We have a school that could actually hold like 150 kids if it really wanted to. And there's only like 20 kids there. So it's a small town with not a lot of things, but some really cool infrastructure from that boom that happened.
All right. And talk about the people in the community.
They, when I first moved to Trego, I was sort of told that it was a retired artist community. Which surprised me. We found a really cool little niche of musicians. My husband plays accordion, like I said. And we found this like group of folk musicians and like artists and really neat people that live in the middle of nowhere in Montana.
Yeah. And I suppose I would venture to say that not a lot of young couples moving to communities like this.
No, lots of Canadians, lots of retired people, and there's like the locals that are the true loggers, and the people who have really, been there for generations that are just a fun group of people.
So you're starting a family, and you as young families do, you have a different view of what you need from your community in that moment. Talk about the state of play with early childhood education, support, childcare, et cetera, all these categories of community and or other services that are vital to young families.
Yeah. So in 2021, I found out I was pregnant with my son. And I started looking around for, okay, what am I going to do? What's this going to look like? I started looking for, childcare options and sort of ran into like, oh no.
Like there's nothing?
There's nothing.
Yeah.
There's no programs. The closest childcare is, in Eureka, which is about a half an hour drive. And the options that are there are not necessarily like what someone like me is looking for.
Sure.
It's just sort of like small town daycares.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot. And I sort of looked around and thought, we have this infrastructure. We have a community hall. I have a background in, running programs for young children. So why don't we do something?
Yeah. Let's talk about that community hall, because that seems like a kind of cornerstone of the so many things happening kind of in your portfolio. But what is this community hall? How did it come to be, and why is it a special place for Trego?
The community hall was built in originally 1947 by a group of community members who sort of took it upon themselves. There was no outside funding. It was just like a group of people who, there was one guy had a mill and the other guy had tools, and they came together and built the original community hall. And it's this beautiful building with like really tall ceilings. Yeah. Supposedly they wanted to play basketball in there, and that's why they gave it really tall ceilings. There's no basketball hoops now.
It does have a hardwood floor, though.
It does have a hardwood floor. And then it was sort of built onto over the years. So there's now in the back, there's like a kitchen and bathrooms and all of that. And in the front, there's these like closets that store all of our food bank stuff and now all of the kids program stuff. But largely the building is beautiful and nostalgic for so many people, but it's crumbling. And so having these programs there has sort of reminded people that like we have to take care of this building or it's going to fall apart. And so we've started to bring in, like we just got a big grant, $600,000 grant to renovate the building, update the electrical stuff, get insulation. The whole building like doesn't have any insulation at all.
That seems important.
Yeah, so sort of having these programs now, the food bank just came in 2020. They started a mobile food bank there. And then the kids program has come in, and we've been trying to do more events, and it's sort of been the realization of this building needs a lot of love if we want to keep
So you've got this community center. It sounds sort of similar in its function for the community that a church would play in other places, but non-religious non-denominational or no religious affiliation.
And that's the beauty of it, is that it's not a church. Other places around us, that is the only infrastructure they have is a church. And in Trego, we don't have any churches, but we have this amazing building that is, rentable on the weekends, and we host weddings, we host funerals, we host birthday parties. It's just sort of there as a community gathering space.
Yeah, so you've got this gathering space, and you see this need to develop some systems of care for young people, both the parents and the kids. How do you make that come to life? What is the origin story of Trego Kids?
Yeah.
What is the origin story of Trego Kids?
The origin story of Trego Kids is that we were approached by Lincoln County 0 to 5 by this woman named Dory, who is just like a beacon for early childhood in Lincoln County. Yeah. And she approached some people in the community and were like, hey, we'd love to do something for kids in the community. Who should we talk to? And everyone in Trego was like, you need to talk to Casey. Because I guess I'm the person.
That was your brand.
That was my brand. I was the person. And so she got a hold of me and we got together, and she was like, what is feasible? What do I have the bandwidth for as a young mom? Because at this point I had, a newborn baby. And we got together and we just sort of said, this is where we're going to start. And we started with a play group super simple. Once a week, we're going to build a space that feels welcoming and inviting and child-friendly. And we're just going to see what happens. And the very first play group that we ever hosted, I think we had 12 kids come, which in a town like Trego was like, oh my gosh.
It's a lot. It's like one of the biggest events in community history.
Oh my gosh. It was like, and and then we kept having people coming. It was like there are 12 kids, 14, 18.
Wow.
And every week families coming back, and I was like, oh my gosh, like we should really do something. And so with the help of Lincoln County 0 to 5, who invested some of the initial funding, we sort of built out what started as a play group, and now it's more of a parent resource hub. So we have the play group aspects of it, but we also provide screenings, we provide car seat specialists.
Like health screenings?
So like vision, hearing, developmental screenings, speech screenings, things like that. So like early childhood intervention. Basically all the things that if you lived in a bigger town are just available. But because we live in such a rural area, it's really important that we bring those services to the families and make it accessible so that they're not having to drive an hour to 2 hours to find these kinds of screenings. They can just, come and get those things in their space.
So you're getting this thing off the ground. At what stage are you starting to think like, this is what I want it to be and this is what I want it not to be? Like some set of guiding principles. Do they emerge at some stage in this process?
They did. So originally I was going on my own intuition as a mom who was just trying to figure out what I needed. And I quickly kind of figured out that there was a lot of needs, and everybody had a different opinion. And so we did a survey of the parents who were coming to the program early on and said, what do you think this program should provide, but also what else needs to happen? Like what's missing in this community? And that survey was the first glimpse into what we later developed into the Family Voices Project. So we started hosting family voice meetings where we would bring families together and just sort of go over what is this program? What do we want it to look like? What do we want to bring in? And that was where we sort of developed the idea of having a community preschool, which was the second program that we started after Learn and Play.
So I would assume in this effort to survey the community and develop a needs assessment, if you will, like, you know, you've mentioned your husband, you're in a marriage where you're caring for your own child. There's got to be a diversity of types of families, single parents, parents or guardians caring for kids that are not their own, a whole range of folks that might imply different needs. How did that information emerge, or that sensibility?
So I developed a program that was really unique for our area. Moms groups are really popular in Northwest Montana. There's a lot of like mom-oriented things. Okay. And this program was, at least from what I could tell, the first attempt at inclusivity, at bringing in a diverse group of caregivers. And so we've had foster parents bringing in, their foster kids. Nice. We have dads. We have a great community of dads that bring their kids. And, aunts and uncles and grandparents and everyone sort of coming to the program. And I think that's where we got such a unique perspective, and kind of keeps people feeling ownership over our program. Sure. Is that we're listening to such a diverse group of people.
Yeah, how did that go early on? I mean, because it's different than what you said other folks were doing up there. How did you make people feel welcome? And how did you make people that might have an idea that, hey, this is a mom's group, make those people understand that, oh yeah, everybody's welcome here?
Gosh, how to make people feel welcome is a huge question that I ask myself all the time. And I know it sounds pretty woo-woo, but it's really about the energy that you put out there, that when someone takes the leap of walking through the door, that you make a concerted effort to make sure that you know, or they know that we've made a connection, that you're welcome here, no matter what. And really, it took asking my husband to like, hey, tell your dad friends to bring their kids. Sure. Hey, it took me having a diverse group of people that we had in our circle and just saying like, come to this group, and just keeping them involved in the whole process.
Okay. So you've got this play group going, and as you mentioned, the next step was, okay, there's a need for a preschool. Talk about that. How did you get a preschool off the ground?
So we started with the Family Voices Project, and I, very first meeting, I put together sort of an assessment of what do other small communities have. And I made a PowerPoint presentation, and I said, here's some options. We've got private preschool options. We've got, Montessori. We've got these different things. And the group of parents that came to that first meeting really helped us shape what we were going to have. And what we decided on was that we wanted to call it the community classroom. Okay. And that we wanted to host it in our local elementary school. So like I said, Trego has this amazing elementary school building with not a lot of kids in it. And so we had one of the parents was working for the school, and she sort of said, like, I think there's a classroom that we could dedicate to this preschool.
Right, so you've got the space.
So we've got the space now, which is like the hardest thing in rural town is like, where do you find a building to host something like that? Right. And so being able to be in the elementary school was a huge blessing, not to have to build something or completely remodel something, which was wonderful. So it took, we were in this process of family voice, co-creating with families. And then we also had to bring in our school board and say, this is your space, and now we have to work together. So we wrote an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, with our school to sort of get everybody on the same page and working together.
So are there any bureaucratic hurdles involved in getting a preschool off the ground? I would assume there's some measure of certification and safety guarantees and other protections in place for the families and the kids.
Yeah. So in the process of co-creating something, it was sort of necessary for one person to sort of step up and say, okay, I am going to do all of this bureaucratic,
Yeah.
all the paperwork, all the emailing, and all of that. And so that person was me. And at this point, I had just had our second child. So I
Okay.
had a toddler and a newborn.
Sure. You got lots of time on your hands.
Yeah, and also like no childcare. I can't just like drive my kid to.
Yeah, you are the childcare solution for everybody in the community. So finding childcare for yourself is going to be a bit of a challenge.
Exactly. And so then I was, in this weird spot where I'm also trying to navigate, like OPI in Montana doesn't have a preschool certification,
Yes.
if you will. So we had to get licensed as a childcare facility, even though like our goal wasn't really to provide childcare. Our goal was to have a preschool in that community.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to jump through all the hurdles to get a childcare license, which was unexpected, but it was getting insurance and making sure that, we had the right type of fencing, and our teachers that we chose ended up having to go through like lots of trainings that don't necessarily apply to preschool age kids. But yeah, so lots of hurdles to jump through. And I would say that was the point when co-creating became more of like me deciding that I was going to like go ahead and get all of this stuff done in the background of letting our co-creating group sort of decide all the fun stuff. So they were working on what are our core values and what does this program look like and how much time are the kids going to spend outside. And I was in the background doing all of the not so fun.
But essential work.
But essential stuff.
Hard labor.
Yes.
Casey, I have to ask, and my expectation is you will deflect, but why you? Why? I mean, you were the champion for this thing, and that creates that requires something special. Why you? Why have you taken this on as I don't want to say your life's work, because you got a lot of more life ahead of you, but like why is it so important right now for you?
It's important for my own kids,
Yeah,
but also looking at the community that I want to build around myself.
Mm-hmm.
That, I moved to Trego because I loved it there, and I loved the people and everything that I had there. And it's this idea that if like what you need doesn't exist, it's up to you to go out and create it, to go out and do it. As another parent said, setting that example for my own children, that they know, that you don't necessarily have to accept things the way that they are, that you can go out and build something if it doesn't exist. And why me specifically is because I did kind of have the time. I'm in this special place in my life where I want to be raising my children, and I want to be with them, and I want to be engaged in their childhood. And the best way I can think to do that and, fill this need is for me to just do it.
Maybe tell us a story of a particularly special win in this process, or how did you know you were on the right path? Is there, a particular kid or family that you made an impact on, or like, give us some of the highlights or a highlight.
Yeah. So, about a year and a half into Learn and Play as a play group, I had a friend of mine who's a videographer. He came in and made a video, super short video about the program.
Okay.
And we put it out on Facebook and we put it on our website. And the very next play group, we had 36 children show up, which was like,
wow.
Around 50 people total in this little building. And it was chaos. But it was sort of that moment for me that was like, the light bulb went off and it was like, I am not the only one that needed this.
Yeah.
There are hundreds. We have now served over 160 children
Wonderful.
In our community, and they come from Whitefish. They come from Canada. We have parents that drive down from Canada.
Wow.
And so as I saw those numbers keep growing, I was like, oh, this is such a need. People need this. And we continue to see new families coming in and saying things like, this is such a safety net for my family, that I just lost my job and I didn't know what I was going to do, but at least I have a place to come with my kids.
Yeah.
And so just hearing those stories over and over of like, this is a safety net. I'm so glad you're here. I just moved here and I don't know anybody. Those are the things that sort of remind me that
you're on the right track.
Yeah, that we're on the right track, that we're doing something. And our preschool that we created is full with a wait list, which in a small town like Trego, where the average person is driving half an hour to get to our program, to have a wait list was just,
yeah, amazing,
mind-blowing.
Yeah. I'm not sure if this is a good question, but let's just give it a try, see where it goes. So you describe the kind of broad geography that you draw from. We're living in a divided time. There's a lot of political division, economic division, a lot of division, and a lot of perception of division. Yet you are building a resource that seems to be accessible to everyone. Respond to this notion that like it seems like a place where politics haven't infiltrated, or maybe you've done things to prevent politics from infiltrating. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I feel pretty strongly that children are a barrier against some of the bad that's happening in the world, and some of the, me versus you and the red versus blue and all of that. Children and childhood programs are just this incredibly unique space to leave that out, and very intentionally leave that out, and make sure that the space is a place that celebrates childhood. And that's really what I wanted, was a place where parents come in and they feel almost like it is a celebration, and they can just watch their kids blossom and grow, and be this little bubble of happiness.
Yeah, that's a beautiful sentiment, and it sounds like you've captured it in a way that's working. That's great. We've talked about some of the unique aspects of your program. If there's a listener out there that's like, I need something like this in my community, wants to replicate what you and your colleagues have done, what kind of recommendations would you have?
My biggest recommendation for someone who feels like they don't have what they need in their community is to start by having good conversations with other families, and decide what does that community need. Every community has a different need and niche, and so it's not necessarily about building or replicating what we've done in Trego. It's about listening to your community and the families in your community about what they specifically think that they need. And as a leader of a program, it's accepting a certain amount of discomfort in that, like, as we've gone along in this process, I've had to listen to families and bring in a lot of input that's not necessarily, like, I probably wouldn't have started a community classroom preschool if it was just me. Like, a lot of that was listening to other people and saying, okay, this is what the community thinks that we need, and I'm going to enthusiastically adopt it and go with it, even if it's not my idea.
Sure. The flip side of that, though, have you had to say no to anything? Like, where are your guardrails?
Yeah, I've never said no. I worked in the therapeutic recreation for a little while, and so I'm pretty good at talking to people. And one thing that I've found is that, like, everyone's ideas carry what their intention really is. So if a parent says, I don't want you teaching anything about bodies in the classroom, what I'm hearing is a parent who is afraid that their child will learn something that they disagree with. And so just being able to connect with parents on what are your fears, what do you really need, what do you want, and being able to validate where they're at has always really helped me, because I'm not just going to say, no, I'm going to teach your child about whatever.
Yeah, we all have bodies.
Yeah. But it's really just connecting with parents and making sure that they feel heard.
Yeah.
And even if I feel differently or I'm going to, stand my ground, it's doing so with sort of the empathy for where they're coming from.
Sure. So you mentioned the building that is at the center of a lot of what you do needs some things, insulation among them. And I'm sure you have other needs. What are some of those needs and how can people help?
So right now we're working on a big renovation grant with the community hall itself.
Okay.
And so that's taken care of. At the moment,
Great.
we are, we're rocking and rolling with that. The preschool side of it, inside the elementary school, is a challenge because we are running into differences between the school and our nonprofit program, sort of rubbing up against each other. And so, there's this like future planning of we might not be able to be in the space that we're in.
Yeah.
And, trying to keep in mind that like the more I say that out loud, the right person is going to hear that and know that like, oh, I have a space or I know of a space or, I know where you could go next or, that kind of thing. And so keeping in mind that like we're in extreme rural Montana, Trego's in the middle of nowhere. And it's hard to find that infrastructure.
Yeah.
But that's our big need right now is like future planning for, needing space.
Okay. Casey, when was the last time you changed your mind?
So speaking of like rubbing up against, our host program, the school is wonderful and the school board supports our program. But just recently I had to change my mind in what I think the future of this program looks like. I think part of me wanted to be very stubborn and say, no, we built this program here. We invested like $40,000 in a building, a preschool in this location, and I want to hang on to it with every, muscle in my body. And I recently had to change my mind and say, what really matters is that all of these programs thrive and that we are providing what our community needs. So if the school wants to have their own pre-K program and that means that we can't exist there, that's okay. And just recently, like, was the first time that I sort of took a deep breath and said, that's okay. That this might not always look the way that it looks right now, and we will still do what we can to provide for the needs of families in our community.
Wonderful. Casey, thanks for coming in today. Thanks for the work you're doing for your community and sharing the story with us. So grateful that you were able to get down here to Missoula in person. You're here for an early childhood ed conference on campus, and hope the conference goes well. And if we can help in any way down the road, please let us know.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to A New Angle. If you like what we do and want to support us directly, please consider a subscription at anewanglepodcast.com. A New Angle is recorded at Studio 49, a generous gift from alums Michelle and Lauren Hansen. Our presenting sponsor is the Headwaters Foundation, working side by side with Western Montanans to improve the health of our communities. We are also supported by First Security Bank and the University of Montana College of Business, with additional help from CED, Drum Coffee, and Montana Public Radio. Keely Larson is our producer. Libby Riddle is our production assistant. And finally, John Brownell, Jeff Ament, and John Wicks made our music. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.